Hello, and welcome to a special episode of Orcusdorkus RPG Shenanigans. But accompanying us is also my better half of the podcast that I do, Titterpigs. So this is going to be a special episode that's going to go up on not only my channel, but the audio is also going to be on the Titterpigs podcast. And someday it might be on the Titterpigs YouTube channel whenever I get around to cleaning that unholy mess up. But we'll look forward to that later. But we are here to do a special episode of a play report and maybe a bit of review and roundtable talk of a very special game that we played over the past few months that we thoroughly enjoyed, and we would like to take a moment to share it with you and talk about some of the highlights of this game, and some of the things that we liked about it, and maybe discuss, some things that we did not, maybe, some improvements that we might suggest therein. But before I go off on the usual tangent that I do, because I like to hear myself speak, is
Yes, you do.
my lovely co-host Keith from Titterpigs. Keith, what are we here today to talk about?
Well, I'm glad you asked. We are going to talk about the 6 seasons in Sartar for the Runequest role-playing game. Sorry, Runequest Glorantha role-playing game. Now, I will caution this entire double episode type thing.
Yes.
There will be spoilers. So if you refuse to know anything about the scenario, this is probably not the video or audio for you to listen to. So spoilers this way. So carry on with that word of caution.
Yes. Jump to the very end when we, thank everyone for coming, and you can miss over the whole thing. But yes, so it will, as Keith said, include spoilers, but we will, that's just the nature of things when you talk about an adventure. But without before we get on to introducing the rest of the lovely people here who participate in the game, I would like to present to you our wonderful GM of 6 Seasons in Sartar, Roy. And if Roy wouldn't mind, could you tell the watchers, I guess, and the lovely listeners what 6 Seasons in Sartar is?
Sure. 6 Seasons in Sartar is a campaign based on young Orlanthe, the people of Dragon Pass, coming of age. So the players are effectively teenagers. You start play as a 15 or a 16-year-old. Going through at the very start of the campaign is your initiation into adulthood, and then it's what happens over the course of your first year as adults. The campaign also covers sort of really the last year of your clan as well, and the occurrence, everything that occurs to your clan. It's very focused on community and the people you live with and your families. It's not your typical hack and slash adventure, go and kill monster of the week sort of thing. It's something very different than that.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Roy. I appreciate that. Do not leave. We still need you to sit here for the rest of the episode. Your work here is not done. So as you can tell, we have the rest of the lovely group of people here today who participate in the game. So what we're going to do is, before we get into the meat of the episode, we're just going to go around the room and have everyone introduce themselves personally, and then introduce the character that they played within the campaign, and maybe a brief description of what their character, who their character is. So in order, in chain of events of what I'm looking on my screen, I'm going to go ahead and start with Pookie.
Hi, I'm Pookie. I got to play a character called Ardessa in the campaign, who is an Isari's worshipper, the trade and communication god, and she was a fairly normal teenager until bad things happened when she got very stroppy and was essentially put through the emotional ringer over the course of the campaign.
Thank you, Pookie. Next up, we have, we have Lloyd. Hi, Lloyd.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lloyd, and I'm here under duress, and I'm just here to get paid. I hurt everywhere, and I had no choice but to be here for today because I was told to be.
Yes.
I played Ezra, the Unblemished, who was a axe-wielding, crime-solving worshipper of Orcusdorkus, whose entire purpose was to ensure that the party kept to the straight and narrow, and weren't dissuaded by dumb things like boys.
As you can tell, you already maybe have a general idea of where this campaign started and where it went. So next up, we have Roz. Roz, thank you for coming today.
Hello. I'm Roz, but I was Dira Lari, even though no one ever called me that. Everybody called me Dira. And as a worshiper of Arnalda, a healer in training, if you will, and the beloved niece of Morganeth, the chief priestess, we had a lot of things go kind of wrong for us at times.
Yeah, that's maybe you'll find out in our description. But again, the course of the way things went over this scenario, but it's not all doom and gloom because we have Keith here. And Keith,
Oh, yes. So
introduce yourself and your character.
Hi, so I'm Keith. I'm the better half of Titterpigs, just putting that out there for the public. But I played Fenorth. I was the younger brother of Lloyd's character. So my sister and I, we had lots of back and forth, and she did try to keep me on the straight and narrow, but it wasn't about boys. It was more about girls. And yeah, so we come from a family of crafters, tanners to be precise. Our mother, who I love dearly, was a thorn in our side, but we picked up some nice new family members, and our little family and clan evolved throughout the story, which was interesting. And Fenorth was just trying to make his way in the world, and he thinks he successfully did that while still finding love in the midst of war. That's all I'll say.
Coming soon to the CW. Thank you, Keith. And I guess that leaves me, as I'm Scott, and I played Baron Gandhi, Orvanson of the Riddle Watch. Gandhi for short, not by choice, but I guess that's what everyone ended up calling me because no one wanted to say Baron Gandhi all the time. And I played my character was of the cult of Orlanth, but he comes from a long lineage of scribes, of which he was beginning to follow in the footsteps of that as he was coming of age, but longed to follow more in the footsteps of the Orlanth adventurous. And I would probably say that's eventually where he ended up, depending on how the campaign went. But I would equate the way that I played Gandhi was as your kind of bonehead Glorantha version of a jock. Reminding all the people watching and listening that these are teenagers, and we're all of a certain age, but it was kind of nice to rekindle and remember and get our teenage years on and do some stupid teenage stuff within the game. So I tended to play mine as the well-meaning but somewhat
Dumb jock.
Somewhat self-centered jock. But I ended up changing, and my character arc became something of my heart grew 10 times by the end of the campaign, and hopefully someone can heal that because I don't have much longer to live. Anyways, so, and that is the an example of the characters you're going to play within 6 seasons in Sartar, if I'm not mistaken, Roy, right? You're all playing teenagers. So before we go around the room and talk about a few things, Roy, can you give us another description of how does the campaign begin? I mean, why are we doing this within the various tribes that we belong to?
Right. Well, the core of the campaign is just exploring that journey from childhood to adulthood within the Orlanthi culture in Glorantha, and it's a real in-depth dive to it, which this stage of a person's life was always just covered by character creation in the rules, and always has been. So this is the first time I've seen a campaign actually delve directly into that, and it's made it quite unique in that faction. The setting itself is you're from a quite remote clan. You're like really out in the boondocks. You know, if you like, you're the backwoodsmen from you know, the people living in the hollows in Justified. You know, you're
Yeah.
you're Hicks basically. Very traditionalist in your beliefs, and because of the isolation of your location, your clan has managed to kind of stay out of a lot of the things that are going on in the politics of the surrounding land, because your land has been conquered by a foreign empire. And as the campaign goes on, those elements creep into it, and it kind of invade this little idyll of Blackstag Vale that your clan lives in. Not sure where else you wanted me to.
So in case he's watching and yelling at either the screen or his iPhone, Doc Cowie would like to know, what year does this take place?
Oh, right. Okay. Well, that's quite straightforward. This takes place in 1619.
1619.
So, yeah.
Okay. And
It was a good year.
Yeah. But it is leading into a course of events that molds and shapes, you know, the world of Glorantha. More importantly, though, Dragon Pass specifically, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So
the campaign starts 6 years before the official timeline that you'll get in the rule book. So it's this campaign and its follow-up, Company of Dragons, basically takes you up to the point of the start. If you like, the entire campaign, including Company of the Dragons, is a way of playing through the character generation, where your characters in 1625, the official start of the gaming timeline in the rule book, your characters will be the age that characters would normally start, and the starting adventurer would be.
Right. Exactly. So I mean, it's if I'm not and I don't want to get into too much of my personal opinions of it, but it is most people recommend it as a good introduction to the world of RuneQuest and Glorantha, not only to, you know, have the fun of actually living the history of this character rather than just rolling it on a bunch of random tables, but also as a way to have an understanding of what the world is like, which can tend to be a bit overwhelming for a lot of people, and tend to scare off some people in regards to the world of Glorantha. But this kind of takes you through the steps bit by bit, and I'm not going to say it spoon feeds it to you, but it is a way to kind of look at it from a first person's perspective, as opposed to sitting down and reading a 800-page history book. Which,
I mean, hopefully it's a good way for neophytes to Glorantha to be introduced to the world, but I'll leave that to you lot to tell me whether that was the actual case or not. Pookie's the only really experienced Glorantha file amongst you, so hopefully it was the case.
I took Bud's test. I got 18 out of 20 questions right. I mean,
yeah,
whatever.
I didn't make it past the first question and I quit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm going to easy in Bud's test.
I'm going to hand it over to you now, Keith. I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind taking over, and how about you handle the part of the round table, if you don't mind, just kind of maybe picking on someone and maybe deciding on something that they would like to talk about.
Well, I think so. I will take it over. Thank you. But I think Roy brought up a good point about you and Roy about this being a game for, very much meant to like bring players in starting at a young age before the normal timeline. And, him kind of Roy leaving you left us with the question of, you'll let us tell you if it was a good introduction to Glorantha. So I think all of us have played prior to this game except for Lloyd. So Lloyd, I see you rolling your eyes. Thank you. As somebody that's absolutely brand new to RuneQuest Glorantha in the world and the mechanics, what was your initial take on this whole thing?
All right.
Lay it on us.
Okay. So this is part of the podcast that you can all switch off now if you don't want spoilers, because I'm about to go in.
Right.
Okay, so let's start with the preparation for everything else. Now, unlike everyone else at this table, I have no idea anything about RuneQuest. I've never been into it. People just talk about it a lot of the time. It's a thing that's in the corner. I'm in England. You think I'd know more about this, but I don't. So to prepare myself, I played through King of Dragon Pass and 6 Ages back to back because I'm a rebel and that's how I live. So my entire knowledge is based on very little information I got from the role-playing game, from the book, and from the incredible introduction that Roy went out of their way to tell us about how the hero board work, where the hero comes from. You can't see it, but Roy went through so much pressure to put so much detail down on the Roll20 page that I had no problem once to get into it. In fact, he was also there to tell us exactly what percentage of which people have certain runes. A statement that I believe I read and no one else did because I appreciated the work Roy put through, which of course led to the wonderful copy pasta that I'm not going to read out loud because I know Roy would kill me if I read it.
Yeah.
It was so Roy's first reply. Okay, I didn't set a scene for you people, right? So
Oh my
let me tell you,
God,
let me
you
tell
have
you
to.
people. Like, screw the question. Let me tell you people how serious RuneQuest is. When Roy put all that data up, Roy said, make your characters. And Roy gave us all the information we needed to make our characters. Some of us didn't make our characters right. So there is a rant, a beautiful, well-written description rant that I am definitely not about to read its entirety of to you right now. I'm not going to actually read it because I'm going to be bad. Okay, let's be fair. I am going to read the entire thing to you. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to start from the top.
Don't you?
It's happening. I'm sorry. I got to give the people what they want, Roy. I'm sorry.
I was having a day. All right.
Yes.
We
Yes,
all
For the
have a
fans,
day.
Roy. For the fans.
But listen, Roy, this is not about you. It's about what the people need to understand, why RuneQuest is so important in the game, the
Right,
world that we live
okay.
in right now. Where is it? I've lost it. Give me a second. Hang on. Oh, God, I've lost it again.
I didn't put him up to this,
Almost
Roy,
there.
just so you know.
Yeah, they did. They definitely did 100%. 100%.
But we did
Oh my-
not.
You know, you've already done it in the online pub once. And it's like that's
Yes,
not
but
enough.
now-
You've got to do it again.
Yes.
It's time for
Give me one
posterity.
It's very important I get this right. I'm sorry taking so long, everybody. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to find the text.
Now, while he's looking,
All right.
okay. Oh, okay, go on. Then I'll
In the voice
say
of
my
Roy,
piece.
right. I thought you lot were familiar with the rules and setting, so I'm surprised I'm having to post this. Atlanti males are overwhelmingly born with the air rune in their primary, females with earth. The Haribon are unusual in that a small majority are born with darkness as their primary. So far, Lloyd, hi, that's me, is the only person, hi, that's me again, who wrote up anything like a traditional Atlanti. Males born with earth and females born with air are a tiny percentage of the population. But at the moment, 60% of the group are atypical. Normally, I'd say fine, could be interesting. But this campaign is about exploring Atlantic culture, tradition, and myth, which is almost impossible when hardly any of you fit that mold that allows us to do that. Now, you might not think this is the greatest
It
thing
wasn't
ever,
meant to sound that strong.
It didn't, Roy.
but that was my introduction to RuneQuest, and I went in already after that. I was already being praised for reading the lore, and I was like, this is what we're starting with? I am ready. So I enjoyed every minute of my RuneQuest experience. I would gladly break down each chapter later when we get a chance, because we're going to talk. But I'd like to say, Roy, thank you so much for introducing me to the world of RuneQuest like that, because I knew this was serious business, and there was no time for high fives anywhere. That's all I want to say. Carry on.
So to question, Lloyd, do you now feel as if you have been initiated into the world of Glorantha?
That was way better initiation than the riddle or the rite of passage. Like, by miles. Like, throw that shit in the bin. You don't need that. That text that was showing me that the work I put in was worth it was better than anything I could. I was like, I cannot believe I'm reading this.
Hold on.
So good.
So Lloyd, for all this love and praise you're giving RuneQuest Glorantha right now, what do you have to say for all your bitching in the game?
Oh no, we haven't talked about the game. That's in the RuneQuest world.
We'll get to
great.
that.
Okay,
We'll get to
fine,
that. Don't you worry. I am drinking a brew dog right now to keep my strength up. I assure you, I am ready.
Whoa.
Because we'll be here 4 hours if we don't. Please carry on.
Now,
Oh, okay.
now
Scott,
before you continue, Keith, I'm not going to read it, but all I'm going to add to that was I didn't make my character yet, but I got a plead from Roy. Says we need an atypical Orlanthe for the campaign, and I said no problem. But mind you, much like a student who was studying for a test that he didn't study for, laser focused through the entire character creation, and I, circled every O, wrote down every L, dotted every I as Orlanthe as I can make, sent it to Roy, and what I got back was, "Thank you for making it easier." And I said, "No problem." So, but now that we've crossed 2 off the list, we're not going to throw the other 2 under the bus who did their own thing. But Keith, now carry on.
Okay, so Lloyd, thank you. Scott,
You're
thank you.
welcome.
Roz, so like me and Scott, and very much like Lloyd, you're very new to RuneQuest as well. So what was your initial take?
Unlike Lloyd, I believe the riddle was the best part because I think going through that for me, I was able to embrace more and have a better understanding of Glorantha and of Arnalda. The riddle is like amazing. If you do nothing else, just do the riddle.
I have to chime in.
Well, you
on
can't
that. No.
because you're a boy.
No, but what I want to say is that whole coming of age thing, right? At the beginning of the story, where you are transitioning from adolescence to either womanhood or manhood and making that transition. I mean, that was weird to play it out because I've never played a game where that is a central theme to it, but it was quite interesting, and it made me more invested from the starting line in my character and where my character fit in with the others and where my character fit in with the story as a whole. It gave me a different perspective, having played RuneQuest previously a few times. It just gave me a different perspective that I didn't have previously. So I like that part of what 6 Seasons in Sartar is and is trying to do. At least up front in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do before we continue on, because for the people watching and listening, I would like to eventually put some context to what we're talking about here, the riddle and that kind of thing. But let's go to you, Pookie, and just kind of your general take. As far as I know that you are well versed in the world of Glorantha and have been since for as long pretty much I would assume since you've
Christ
been gaming.
walked in sandals.
Right, exactly. And you've run many games for us. You played in some games, but and I know you've been biting at the bridle to have this particular game run for you. Now, you did review the game before playing it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that was for me. I review games and lots of games, and one of the dangers with that is, of course, that you might, be confronted with the opportunity to play something that you've already reviewed. With this though, I kind of knew the general story outline, but I didn't. I'd sort of forgotten the specifics by the time I came to play it.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing. For me, it was a chance to sort of like play Glorantha. I don't often get a chance to do that and to play it at a depth. Very much what I regard as a culture game, to engage and embrace that culture and really work at it from sort of like a real starting point. That process of change from child to adult, going through the initiation and beginning to get the fundamentals of understanding who your characters are. We come back to the rant. I mean, I was guilty of creating an atypical character, but I reined it back in, and essentially, I have to admit, I kind of set my character up to kind of have a big kind of falling out. I'd given it some thought because I knew what would happen at the end of the beginning of the first scenario, because I did recall that and I thought that's going to be interesting to play with if this happens. And the fact that I wanted to play a character who was a worshipper of Issaries, and I knew that would kind of happen.
I must say, I knew Pookie had read it beforehand, but I wasn't worried about it in the slightest. I sort of trusted that Pookie, if Pookie having read it, it would just be actually a benefit to the campaign. I wasn't worried at all about that. Yeah. And I think I was, it worked out exactly as I hoped it would. So yeah.
Well, you said at the same time, I mean, you worked out as hoped it would be, but you were also shocked by what I did as well.
Well, at first I thought, whoa, that's a bit full on. But the longer you went on with it, the more I did a complete 180 and thought, oh my God, this is brilliant. This is absolutely fantastic. And it was actually you doing that actually spurred me on. So at one point, my wife came out to see who I was arguing with, and only realised that it wasn't an argument when I finished shouting and then went, so what are you doing next? And at which point she realised I wasn't actually having a full-blown argument with somebody on the screen.
Yeah, I would like to point out that this argument between them, I will be coming back to this conversation later. Don't you worry. It's very right. I as a third party observer, I have some choice words for that. Carry on.
All right, so that's kind of all. Scott, do you have anything to add to initial impressions?
No, but I think
starting gate.
No, but I think where we should move on and start with kind of give context to everything.
So the story evolves. We go through these initiation rites, and I think it in of itself, in my opinion, as somebody that's relatively new to RuneQuest, is so intrinsic to this story that you can't separate the story from the initiation. They have to be done together and in unison. So can we talk about it briefly? Yeah. I know it's going to be spoiler territory, but because we both had we had a group of 2 male characters and 3 female characters, and they have very different initiation and coming of age rites.
Right. So Roy, why don't you set us up then? I mean, we don't have to go into a long description of it, but when the campaign begins and the scene starts in 6 seasons in Sartar, where is it that we're going to find ourselves when we're beginning in regards to this initiation rites?
Right. So for the female players, before we got together as a group, I did one-on-ones with Pookie, Roz, and Lloyd, running through their initiation, and very much just one-on-one, and based on the choices and the way they played through that initiation, very much set up where their characters were going. Yeah, so you go through that initiation as a one-on-one. At the end of it, you should the player should have a very good idea of the direction their character is going to go on. So for Roz, it was very much the core an Alden path of womanhood and sort of nurturing the future down the line of sort of motherhood and caring. With Lloyd, Ezra went off on a different tangent completely. Sort of was I'm not even sure how to phrase it. Well, Lloyd, why don't you give it as a quick rundown on what you thought with the riddle?
So the riddle is the rite of passage, because the fortunate thing about playing a female character is you get to do both, because you play as one of the side characters from the game, hence Roy being so puts down for that. Before I do that, I need to preface one thing before we start. Roy played the game pretty much to the letter. So as far as I'm concerned, this is the quintessential way that 6 seasons are supposed to be played. Because I've read the books now, and as far as I'm concerned, Roy was like, nope, we're playing it straight and played it straight through for pretty much most of it. So when I say I did not fuck the fish, I fully intend to understand the phrase of I did not fuck. Roy tried to trick us because like the ritual is supposed to go through this process where you are, because it's a hero quest. You take the persona of certain people and go through, and there's a whole bit about understanding like giving up your body and then the flow of your blood later, and then you meet a god and you fuck the god. But he tried to get us to fuck the fish by making the fish Jason Momoa. And there is no universe where I will put Jason Momoa's dick anywhere near my body. So I was not gonna fuck that fish. It was not happening. I did not care. And that's where the line of anything else came from. You see, that's where the problem came from, that line. But the game is built so even if you're like me and you don't want to fuck the fish, you still go through the riddle, even though you deviate from the path. And I don't know what the other two did. They probably fucked the fish, but I know what the other two did. But I very much felt my character's personality meant that I meant to take a different path in the riddle. And the game emphasized for that and played it through.
Right.
Yeah. There's the traditional path through the riddle, but there are no wrong decisions. The decision you make will just sort of influence how you see your character and where your character will go from that point, and perhaps direct them towards certain cults or occupations, or just how their character will develop.
Right. And each, as stated, each one of these, were pulled aside individually to do these things. They were essentially one-on-one sessions. And when they were said and done, we have no idea what the other person went through. Now, of course, it's a role-playing game, so people, some would role play the outcome of it accordingly and show that, but most of us were in the dark of what each individual person went through. So that's another highlight and interesting aspect of this particular game is you're doing, not only are you doing this initial character building for these teenagers, mind you, these are what, 15 to 16 years old.
Yeah.
That you're not, when there's this aspect of surprise and secrecy going on, because these are personal events that each one of these characters are going through, and it does kind of make things a bit clicky as they would with normal teenagers. I would Keith's character for North, we were the two guys, we kind of, we had a bit of a bond over that event. The three characters playing playing the girls within the game, they had their own special events, but even though we were together as a group with other NPCs in the game, there were still things started to do as they do naturally within teenagers as people start to divide off and branch off into different aspects,
into their cliques,
other cliques, and other cults. So it's an interesting dynamic and see how, and it definitely laid a foundation for how things played out,
right.
both dramatically and hilariously as the game progressed. So,
well, that's why I said I think it's as somebody relatively new to the game. I think that initiation ritual, playing as a in your middle teenage years, and then doing the initiation ritual and that transition from adolescence to adulthood is absolutely important to the entirety of the story, because you become the central piece of the story. You, me, each of us as a group all become the main characters in this evolving story of not only of our family groups, but our clan, the different family groups as we go out, larger and larger in the Vale. And it's amazing how that introduction point is so linked to everything else that comes after it.
Especially with that first, because the boys' initiation is the first session where everyone's together.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bit of role play beforehand, just a clan life before it goes into the boys' initiation. For the boys' initiation, the players with female characters all took NPCs.
Mm-hmm.
So that there was 5 characters plus another NPC, 6 characters total going through the boys' initiation.
That felt a little weird, I got to admit. Like the our female characters, their players, got an inside look at our initiation, but we didn't get an inside look into their apparently fish fucking. I mean,
Yeah, well, no, that's because women have a good idea about blokes, but blokes haven't got a clue about women. So
you know what? You're not
so
wrong.
that only that
You're
seems
not
perfectly
wrong.
reasonable to me. But
Also, don't forget that males go through it together. We have to go through it alone.
Yeah.
And I mean,
You know what?
the other-
That's absolutely like that's fair. I mean, I can appreciate that. Yeah.
and I mean, the other thing about the riddle is that it's the whole experience is I mean, it's more womb-like than the one that the men go through. You know, it is a rebirth.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's intrinsic. Of the female initiation is something you go through alone, whereas the men's initiation is something you go through as a group. That is actually really important to it. But what was also really good was that the NPCs that everyone played actually ended up becoming major NPCs through the campaign, which wasn't originally the plan, but you know, the people did such a good job with them that kept them around.
Yeah. So what happens after this, Roy?
Well, after this, there's you can there was a bit of a side quest which was actually initiated from the started because of events in the initiation, which introduced you to some of the neighbors of the clan. You got to meet the Telmori wolf people, and trips up into the mountains. And I mean, how much detail do we want to go into?
Oh, I mean, as much as you like, because one of the things that I was hoping to touch on is as we're talking about the initiation, is it's actually there's a possibility that your character may not even make it through.
Oh, absolutely. Two of the NPCs died in the initiation. Then one rolled under their power, often rolled under his power, and just was kicked out of the initiation. The other Avantal actually died. And it became a point that he was resurrected, and it completely changed his entire personality going through that event. Because dying and going off to the Silent Court and to Haven Vor, and then being dragged back to the real world, will tend to have an effect on a person's personality. So yeah.
So I mean, it is an initiation process, but it's not, you know, a bunch of teenagers getting together to play a game of T-ball.
Yeah.
This is a rite of passage into, you know, womanhood, manhood, whatever the case may be, but into your, you know, into your particular cults. But there's no guarantee that you'll be accepted into this, and you may, I guess, best way to describe it, you're finding lacking, and you don't progress into adulthood. So yeah, there's definitely a danger involved within this that I was not expecting at all. And it was quite a shock when these occurred. It's like, oh shit, now we're, you know, things are getting real. You know, you're not kids anymore, and which is the point of, seems to be several of the points of the game. But yeah, that's an interesting aspect to detail within this, that there's a chance that first scenario, you may
it was some really unlucky rolls as well, though.
Yeah, but the possibility is still there.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I think I just want to say before we move on to the main body of what the story's about. I think I'm gonna, because Scott preemptively said something off air. The creator, Andrew Lloyd Montgomery. Did I get it right?
Andrew Logan. Not Andrew Lloyd Webber.
No, that's what I was afraid I was going to say.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. No. What I want to say though is with 6 seasons of Sartar, and then there's obviously, for those that don't know, there are 2 additional books that evolve the campaign further beyond this initial story. But I think he's hit on something that I haven't seen in the rest of the library, as it were, of RuneQuest books that I have access to, or that I've seen or know about, with, you know, starting at such a young age, going through the initiation rites, and then being thrust into this emerging situation that is not only interesting but becomes catastrophic big picture wise. So I just wanted to say that I think he's really, I want to hammer home that I think he's really hit on something that's good. Lloyd?
I would like to double affirm that I am more disappointed in RuneQuest, in that RuneQuest is not about staying with a clan and doing clan stuff, and it's more like your adventure game. Because I thought, after playing King of Dragonpan 6 Ages, I thought this was it. Yes, you stay with your clan, you have your clan members, you do clan stuff, and you move on from there. I did not realize RuneQuest is about being like a badass adventurer and doing some ass-kickery stuff elsewhere. By the way, we need to talk about mechanics later. I did not realize that at all. And the fact that when I found that out, I was more disappointed in that than I thought I would be, because I really, really enjoyed the living in a village aspect of Six Seasons of Sartar. That was the best part of that game. And I don't know if I can play a game again, like for RuneQuest, that doesn't do that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the main body of the story. You know, Roy, can you give us just another recap, like a high level overview of what the story was that after the initiation to the end point, just kind of a broad brushstrokes?
Okay, so the main events are that at a point in the course of the year, your characters discover a hidden temple on the mountains above the Vale, and you discover the spirit of a worm, which is Shavashak, which Keith is a priest now.
Yes.
And
Why, yes, I am.
the spirit sort of associates itself with you. It puts its imprint on you, and you imprint on it, and it effectively becomes your group spirit, your Whiter. Just as a village has a Whiter or a temple has a Whiter, which is the community spirit, it becomes your community spirit. And for most of the campaign, it's kind of there in the background. You don't really know what's going on. It just appears to you occasionally, has a chat with all of you at different times, but it's kind of very much in the background. It's just back there somewhere. But this actually is part of the great hero Kalir Starbrow, who's leading the Orlanthi rebellion against the Lunar Empire, is interested in this spirit as well. And she's actually comes to the Vale to, when she hears that you've made contact and got into the temple, and to actually get hold of this spirit. She needs it for her plans to defeat the Lunars, only to find that the spirit has, associated itself with you guys and wants nothing to do with her, and tells her to bugger off, basically. And she has to just put up with it. But the Lunars are hot on the tail of Kalir as well, and they then come to the Vale to try and take her. There's a fight. Lunars are killed. This is then the excuse that the clan, the tribal chief Kangol, who's the king of the Kolimar, which is the tribe your clan's part of, and has always had a problem with the Haraborn, and works for the Lunars. He's effectively a lunarized Orlanthi. Is given orders to come in and take, and the campaign ends with basically the destruction of your clan, and your clan having to go into exile and run away from its home.
And I mean, and alongside that, you've got at least a couple of mysteries, and a lot of personal sort of interaction.
I mean, you can go depending on how you want to. When we first discussed doing it, I mean, you can all thank Pookie, because he caught me when I was drunk and then stuck the idea in my head. And then I had no intention of running another Runequest game, because I've been running Runequest, and I thought I'm Runequested out, and I've done enough Runequest. And then you got me drunk and put ideas in my head.
Sorry, can I just go to this? Okay, so this was at Grogmeet last year, 2022. Yeah. And I was sat next to you at the pub in Manchester, and And to be clear, I didn't get him drunk. He was already drunk. He'd done that himself.
Yeah, I may well have already been drunk.
Yeah.
There's a very good chance I was already drunk.
I said, and I very much half jokingly said, "So, what would it take for you to run 6 seasons in Sartar?" And that put the
yeah. At the time, I told you absolutely, I wasn't going to do it. Forget it. I wanted to play it too much. So
yeah. So I went away and went, "Oh, that's fine." I wasn't expecting you to do anything, and then you sort of like just surprised us out of the blue.
Yeah, I think it was less than a week later. I went, "Oh, you bugger! I can't get it out of my head now." So yeah, had to do it. But when we were discussing it, it seemed clear that nobody was interested in a really long-running campaign. We wanted something fairly concise, because you can embellish the campaign. You can add all sorts of episodes to it. The classic setup is 1 adventure a season, but you could have 2 adventures a season and throw in all sorts of stuff if you wanted to do lots of side stories and character development and character arcs in different directions. But I got the impression, and kind of what I wanted to do as well, was keep it really tight to the story and just really going hard on the core of the campaign, and not going to I didn't want to turn it into the sort of go off adventuring Runequest campaign that Lloyd was talking about, where you're often just doing things to be heroes rather than have it everything. I wanted everything to be connected to the clan and everything to be connected to the hopefully that worked. But it's a weird, when you do that, the problem is it is a bit of a railroad. So it's not like player decisions are going to drastically alter the direction of where the story goes. And knowing that, I wanted to make it interesting for all of you. So I decided to really concentrate on how all the events affected each of your characters, and really constantly ask you about that. I think I've described it as being, rather than the games master, I was a games counselor for the campaign.
I felt like I was in counseling like a number of times, which was, and I'm not complaining. I thought that was very good on your part, but also because some of the subject matter was very heavy, mentally heavy, with the initiation rite, and then some of the emerging story was very, just very emotionally heavy in some parts. And yes, Lord.
Yeah,
So, since we're on the subject of the game, I feel we should definitely highlight a certain aspect of it. Now, I'd love to talk about each individual season separately at some point, but I'd like to talk about the GMing and the hashtag railroad, and watching Roy change the formula of the game as it goes along. Specifically, the subject that came up earlier before, which is Pookie's character having a falling out with their father.
Right.
Context. One of the side stories, the first one that comes up, is a murder mystery, which is not really a murder mystery. It's a partial mystery that involved one of the family members from Pookie's family side. So when that happened, it turned out that Pookie's father was sleeping with essentially the enemy. I believe it's a troll. And ogre. So my bad. So when what came up, Pookie's character disowned their father. And this is the first big jump in the off book that Roy had to deal with. So, because Roy figured, well, okay, they'll get over the father, it'll be fine. And Pookie was like, no, I'm not taking that. It's not going to be that easy. So we had 3 months, 3 months of watching Roy trying to fix the relationship to get back on the railroad, and Pookie just bouncing everything off it to the point where Roy was starting to lose hair and his mind. This man, when he started off, you can't see him now, right? He was clean shaven, his hair was perfect, and his room was littered with miniatures. By the end, he was a scragged man who looked like he'd been broken by Pookie. The plotline was
Can
really
I
great.
Right? Can I point out, the railroad wasn't reliant in any way on Pookie's relationship, Odessa's relationship with her father. It's just, for me, the reality is that people go through stuff, and teenagers like hate your father, all the rest of it. But if I'd just gone, okay, you hate your father, and left it there, rather than trying to bring something, there's no sort of like I just didn't think that was that interesting. Sort of like trying to bring some sort of reapproachment was a bit more interesting. It also gives a bit more pathos for the end of the campaign, especially considering what happened to Borkar by the end, Ardessa's father.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, the point was the sort of like the other setup was the fact that the ogre was in fact basically my character's stepmother, and he basically the revelation essentially, as far as she's concerned, she saw it as a betrayal of just about everything she believed in, her, you know, basically the memories of her mother, and just lost it essentially.
Oh yeah, she did.
And that kind of set up sort of like an arc where she would sort of like, by the end of the end of the whole sort of like the 6 seasons, she would come back to her father. So at the very end of the campaign, there's a big battle, you know, and he is hurt. He is rendered comatose. And as I joked at the point, it's sort of like when she sees this, there's the moment from the Railway Children where Jenny Agutter runs down the platform going, "My daddy, my daddy, my daddy." She's doing exactly the same across this battlefield. Just realizing, oh my God, that she's going to lose her father as well as her mother.
Right.
So hold on. I want to bring Roz into the conversation because we haven't heard her voice enough yet. So
I was about to point to him, but it's all good. Go for it.
Yeah.
Hold on, Lloyd. Roz, what can you add to this?
With respect to the term railroad, I think it was less railroad because our characters were just leaving, you know, their childhood, you know, early adulthood. As members of that clan, we were very much at, you know, the whim of the adults. So we were sent off to do various and sundry things, but it didn't feel, you know, as a player that we were railroaded. It's just like the nature of life as a young person in a clan.
And I'd also follow that up in that everything about the campaign is actually quite is itself narrow. The setting of the valley is narrow. The choices we have in sort of like in terms of cult affiliation are narrow. So that kind of affects the whole outlook and style of the campaign, because we don't really ever leave the actual, don't leave that valley. We just we put one foot outside it, for, you know, more or less throughout the whole, you know, a couple of times throughout the whole campaign.
No, that's fair. So Lloyd, you were going to add something. So
I would like to, I'm bringing the point of Dira coming into the statement. I would also like to point out the other very important move that I thought would be important. So once again, I'll like to clarify, Roy ran this game directly from the book. And during the second season, where it was the scene with Pookie's stepmother being evil, we confronted her in a cave. And she cast a spell that would have killed me instantly. Now, this is by the book. I double checked. This is by the book. She casts this spell and you die, which Dira saved me from.
Right.
Now, there's a whole thing in the way it played out and how it worked out. But what's interesting to me is, one, there is a spell in there in the second season that just kills you.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's the. Oh, also, Roy was really nice. She cast it the first thing. First thing she does is cast it. It's like, bam, done. You're just out. But
you just smashed her kneecap in.
No, I'm not in the book. She's supposed to just cast it immediately as soon as you see the characters. It's like, bam, you're just done. And we got saved. But what would have happened with the story had one of us died? Because that was like that was literally season 2. Now, death is possible all the way through. But right. Roy, what does the book allow you to do if one of us pass away? Are we forced to play the other younger characters? or do we have to make a new one to come in?
You could. Well, I would have left it to you to decide. The most straightforward thing would have been to take on one of the NPCs we already had in the game, but if ideally the one you'd already played, so you would have been playing Squint. But if you wanted to roll a new character up, that would have been absolutely fine as well. But it is, I mean, when it happened, it was like, oh my god, God, we might be losing one of you already. But that is always a risk with RuneQuest. It's one of the things the game's always famous for. No matter how good you get, a lucky roll will kill you.
It's also, sadly, one of the very few interactions I had with Dira as a character.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, most of my interactions were with everyone in total, mostly with Pookie's character, with Ezreala, but very few interactions with Dira, and that's the one thing I regret the most. I don't care about Gandhi, he's fine. But mostly, I wish I'd interacted more with Dira's character, plot-wise. That's the one regret I have of the campaign. But it does also bring me up to my other problem with the campaign. There is one more problem, don't you worry. The rules.
Okay.
Before you get on to the rules, I would like to say one thing that was fun from my point of view was actually because knowing the campaign as I sort of did was the fact that when we were playing through that first season, you were essentially doing CSI Glorantha and trying to solve the mystery of the missing children. So the thing was, it's sort of like, so you've gone down through the steps and you very quickly, you identified the villain.
Only because Roy's notes are so immaculate, the villain is very clearly there.
Yeah. So, and the thing was, it was sort of like, well, I went, well, I can't have that as my character would not go, oh no, you're entirely right. That's my stepmother. Couldn't be right. The film was basically persuading you that wasn't the case. That surely couldn't be the truth because my stepmother would never do that. She's lovely.
Yes, and you threw me off the case.
Yes.
But also I've gone.
I was going to say, but Pookie, you did a good job as well because you were also playing Ardessa as being a bit suspicious as well. And then we had a lovely little back and forth, and you ended up making apple pies with her.
Yeah. And
it's sort of, so it seemed natural that your suspicions were allayed, so that when you dissuaded Ezra of it, it seemed perfectly reasonable. It didn't seem like an unreasonable, or you trying to throw a red herring in there or something. It was, it worked naturally.
Yeah, that was never the case. It was a case of no. Well, no, Ardessa might have misgivings about her stepmother because she's her stepmother, but not sufficient enough that she would imagine that she was capable of murder.
Yeah. It also gave me an opportunity to bring apples in because it's a wicked stepmother and you should always have apples.
So
yes.
I want actually, you know what? Let's not talk about the rules to the end because I feel like that's a bit unfair. Because I want to talk more about the story because we're on the story currently.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'll just bounce some things to think. I have so much to say. Let's talk about the plot line of Starbrow and how I felt about it. I'm gonna be very blunt, and I am so sorry. I could not have cared less about Starbrow.
Okay.
The storyline involving the deer folk and the hand thing and everything there was perfectly fine when it was focused on there. When the story started bringing in the bigger influences, I couldn't care less because it felt like it was something happening over there and I was living here. And it was only when we were involved in our own way at the very end that it mattered to me. Because until then, like they were like, oh, there's a war going on, but you can't do anything about it, so fuck you. And I was like, okay, well, I guess that's just the way it is. And nothing we did would really matter to that. I only cared about what happened in the Vale that we lived in.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead, Lloyd. Sorry.
Which is also why I want to bring up another fantastic thing by Roy. During the game, we also got to play as the elders, making decisions throughout it. So whenever the storyline got heavy, we would jump from our characters to the character we represented within the council. I would play the badass axe wielding what's called trainer that was training me. Everyone would jump and roll above them to play those characters, and we would play through the council, going through, which is very much like playing through King of Dragon Pass in 6 Ages.
Now,
Another fantastic point for going through it.
Was that part of the game, Roy, or was that just something you improvised to allow us to interact in that?
No, it's suggested as an option.
Okay.
Yeah, Andrew Montgomery, he's thought of nearly everything. There's very little you have
He
to
didn't think of an ending.
think of it.
Whoa.
Spoilers,
I'm
Lloyd.
coming for you.
Spoilers.
We'll get there.
Coming
We'll
for
get there.
us.
But I might add then, if that's the case, then you did allow us to improvise a little bit, because even though we were playing the elders, what you allowed our characters to do was to become precocious teenagers, because we weren't allowed in that discussion, but we ended up sneaking into the hall to listen in on what's going on, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes. Well, that was all you. That was all
Right.
you. With that particular thing, you were just going to hear about what they decided once you
Right.
Let
they
us
made the
sneak
decision.
in.
But you all sneak in, and if I remember correctly, didn't somebody fall off the balcony?
Yes.
I
you
think
were
that was
hiding on?
me.
No, we jumped.
Yeah.
I think something
No,
occurred
yeah.
where we
Jumped.
revealed ourselves. Yes, after we learned that they were going to do something that we didn't agree with.
Oh, that's right.
Uh,
Yeah, you were making so much racket that
No,
you all jumped
no,
down
we
in the
jumped.
end.
We
Yeah.
jumped down.
Yeah.
We were like, nope, we're stopping this right now.
Yeah.
I thought I fell.
That's because I dragged you with me.
Possible. I mean, you were my big sister and a bitch. I'm just saying.
Oh,
Thank you to both.
but anyways, right, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, so that is actually an aspect of the game where
It's suggested as a possibility. You're given, that it's suggested as one possibility. I expanded it a little bit, but no, it's very much based on suggestions in the book.
yeah, it was-
Okay.
Same with
No,
at the battle at the end. I expanded a lot on who you getting to have an effect on, or at least having some effect on what happens to your loved ones and people you knew and the major characters at the end. I went a bit more into it than it's suggested in the book, but it's still there in the book.
I'm kind of with Lloyd on that, because I also just really enjoyed the cloistered aspect of just the everyday life of what we were going through. Now, granted, there's the side or the major plot where we're finding Sharvashak. Sorry, call it shit. We called Sharvashak Shake Shack through the game just because we're stupid Americans. But
we called him called it a few other things too.
But as far as what Lloyd mentioned, the whole Starbrow rebellion, that's something that's going on over there, and we were living our everyday lives, but we were still being involved in something special. But the special thing, as far as as it was emerging, I felt that it was going to just essentially be us involved with that, and then the outside world comes in to influence it. I kind of felt like ultimately that. And this is just an assumption as we were progressing through this, that where the story was taken was eventually outside of the valley at the end of the year, not with everything coming to us. So I mean, I wasn't like, this is bullshit, I don't want this in the game, but it did kind of seem to me like it did kind of come from out of right field of like, oh wow, what is everyone doing here? What are you? Why is this happening here in the valley?
I'm going to assume that then that's me failing a bit then, because when you're first going up with the deer folk arriving, they were all sent by Clear. So the whole point of it is you've kind of got this little idyll. You're a secluded little clan, and the Lunas have invaded and conquered the country, but you're kind of up in this vale. Nobody really cares about you that much.
Okay.
You're hidden away. They don't bother you. You lie through your teeth about how much tax to pay. So, you're doing fine by yourselves. Everybody leaves you alone. But then slowly over the course of this year, the outside world crashes in on you and to disastrous effect.
There's the thing about in the book that I read that there's like a traitor king that came to do
Yeah.
it.
That's Kangar.
I-
That's who you were fighting at the end.
I didn't feel like he was relevant to us in the slightest until the end. I know you probably mentioned him once or twice, and I just probably missed it. But I was like,
it's
wait,
kind
who-
of, yeah, it's
who-
kind
who
of
this?
law. I mean, I had the stuff up as a handout, but I mean, I had so many handouts out, I couldn't remember what I had up there for half of it. So,
I mean,
it's
to be fair, it's we are dealing with basically a tribe whose outlook is very narrow. So we rarely look beyond the confines of the valley.
Yeah.
And since for the most part, during the campaign, there was little sort of interaction with outside the valley. We
Right.
probably would have thought about the king, and as far as like, okay, he's a traitor, he's far away.
it's also a thing. It was also, I think it's kind of appropriate for the age of the characters as well. You're just into adulthood. You're just out of childhood. These are big adult concerns, which your characters hadn't really been interested in or bothered about up until then. As you're getting older, it would become more and more of a part of your life, and something you'd be talking about over an ale or around the hearth fire. But at your age, you were only just entering the stage where you'd start learning all this stuff, and it's kind of crashed in on top of you before you've had the chance to take on its importance.
But
which
it
is
did.
fair.
Go
Go
ahead,
after
sorry.
you.
I was
No,
just saying-
I insist, please.
Okay, so but I mean, it did. Aspects of that did play out within the game. I mean, there was the situation with the elders. Should we get involved? Should we not get involved? What do we do with these particular people that are encroaching in our valley? And decisions were made by us, representing the community. What do we do here? Do we just remain neutral? Do we assist them? Do we, shove them off and on their way? So it wasn't just like, boom, they're here. But there were still aspects of that allowed that to happen. Or at least it was still going to happen, but ultimately in what fashion it was going to happen, and what led to the outcome. So sorry, Lloyd.
Well, I think there's
Keith.
lots of decision points in the story that, at least for me, did not make it feel railroady. It felt like it was an organic story evolving, and we had points in which we had to make decisions and branch this way or that way. Now, to Roy, it may all have been, to the game master, it might still be just one linear story, a la the railroad. But as a player, it didn't feel like we were being railroaded from one scene to the next. We as players were given, at least this may just be Roy's approach, the latitude to make decisions and do things and have these little side things evolving. The story of Pookie's character's relationship with her father, my emerging relationship with what would eventually become the love of my life, and all these other little stories that make the veil and make the characters richer and more vibrant. Just didn't feel like a railroad to me. Now, the end kind of felt like we were in I don't want to say a railroad, but I think we could see the writing on the wall where the story was going to come to a termination point. So,
Roz, do you have anything?
I did try.
Sorry,
I did try to drop hints all through the campaign that you were playing a tragedy.
yeah, no, you
did.
It's one of the things, like I put lots of all the little brown writing bits in the handouts, which are all the stuff from the book, which Lloyd, you've now read, and all those side notes as if it's Gloranthan academia,
Basically, yeah.
studies and stuff. I put those into it, so you as players had access to it, because I trusted all of you to be able to separate that from your characters. I mean, if it is a campaign, I think, that really flies when you've got really good players who can do that. They're not just.
It's no excuse not to read a great prologue, though, is it?
I know. And
I've told you before, the entire campaign is a prologue. You don't get an epilogue. It's a prologue.
Point that out.
well, Roy, when you run it again for your new players, you can let us know how it's like to run it with Good.
I mean, to be honest, once we're done with this and I've got the new players, you're all dead to me, so I'm going to.
So
Can't wait for the one you
Damn.
guys know. Also, like, what is this crap?
So
All
I'm
right.
gonna
Sorry, go on.
hold on. I want to spin the spotlight for a moment because I know Roz is kind of sitting there, so I just want to get her take because she's being very polite. So regarding this discussion, Roz, the things, what we've discussed, more importantly, these events, regarding Starbrow coming in, and where it eventually led, the idea of, I know you already touched upon the railroading aspect, but do you have anything to say about, what, in addition to what we've just touched upon?
Not really. I don't, again, feel that it was railroady. I feel like we got to do what the adults say. But with respect to not having very much interaction with Ezra, like Cora Longfinger, those are scary people. Dira was not about this scary, very scary individual, and very unapproachable, I must say.
I'm sorry.
Well, there is one thing I'd like to mention that might have scared you. The possibility of being married to Gandhi, which came up briefly.
Ezra Lara, yeah.
Did I miss that part in the game? What's happening here?
It was touched upon in, was it a vision, Roy? I forget what it was, but I know that that was touched upon at some moment. Maybe I'm confusing it with a different RuneQuest game.
Yeah, that's Bera.
Oh, that's Bera. Oh, that's right. Okay, so that's okay. Strike that, delete it.
That's Bera.
I will edit. I will
Fix that in editing. Yeah.
You had a girl. Oh my gosh, did your girlfriend know about this?
But yes, yes, speaking of railroading, yes, the only railroading aspect of the game for me was Roy's incessant need to get Gandhi married, because that happened like every 5 minutes. Is Gandhi ready to commit yet? I'm like, well, no, we're young. Is Gandhi ready to commit now? Well, I mean, how can we get married when there's a war happening in this world, babe? Is Gandhi ready to marry now? There's a battle over. Is Gandhi ready to get married now? My grandfather, we were having a special.
You had an
moment.
excuse for everything. You just weren't.
Yeah, it was Ezrala asking, not me.
Right.
But that's one of the things. I mean, to me, what made the campaign really enjoyable for me running it was all of the way you all got into the relationships with the other people, as well, and into relationships amongst the 5 of you, but also the relationships with the NPCs. And I mean, I loved Finorth's relationship with Laleria. That was, I mean, there's nothing in the book about that. That was just like thrown in there, and the fact that she's sort of related to Gandhi as well, and you've got grandfather, and suddenly Gandhi's grandfather's interrogating Finorth because he wants to marry his granddaughter, and stuff like this. But everyone also took on really nice roles within it. It's like, I mean, Dira was like the silent center, not silent, but the quiet center of the entire group for me. I mean, in many ways, the whole party revolved around Dira, and I can't imagine that campaign going on without Dira. I mean, she I thought was magnificent, and then the relationship we were developing with her grandfather and with her parents and with Offin, and it was just brilliant. This going into all that, and once again, it all came through play. There was none of that. Very little of that was prepared. It was all just riffing on stuff as we were playing, and absolutely loved it. Pookie, the whole family thing with Ardessa and her brother, the way we played it through with her brother was really, really good. Borkorth, Ezra being just this. I think Ros, scary as fuck, basically, and Gandhi, like I said, the jock, but also he's fallen in love, but at the same time she's to the point where he's convinced her, right, this is you're the love of my life, and then it's like, right, okay, well, put a ring on it,
right?
It's and suddenly Gandhi's like, oh, well, oh, look what's going. Not sure. Is now really a good time?
Right.
I'm not sure. And yeah.
I mean, and
again,
go ahead.
sorry,
no, finish, please. No, go.
No, I was just going to say it was really nicely spread out how everyone was contributing.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think you could say that there was a single MVP out of the party, though we all know it was Roz. But other than that, you can't say there was an MVP.
Roz was the glue that held us all together.
And I
Yeah,
will
no.
Who solved both murder mysteries? Hello?
Ezra.
Who was it that worked out both murder mysteries? This
I don't know who that person
thank
is.
you.
Yeah.
and
Like
All
you
right,
solved
so-
the secret
Sorry.
case as well, pointing that out.
and I'm going to say from Odessa's point of view, Ezra was scary, but Ezra was basically the only. I think she felt the only person in the group, who she could go to and express her feelings.
That
given
was
the
a
fact-
lovely relationship as well. The Odessa Ezra relationship was really, really nice. I really got a lot out of that watching the two of you.
given the fact that Ezra would respond in the coldest possible fashion. It was literally, it was like talking to stone almost. So Ezra became Odessa's sort of like sounding board.
Yeah.
But
But
I
it's also-
played. After going.
Sorry.
No,
I was just going to say there was one bit in particular where with Scott we did a little one-on-one because for your character just before everybody else got there, and it was Baron Gandhi going off with his grandfather to go around the steads to
Yes.
harvest time, and suddenly you were convinced something horrible was going to happen to him because we were having this really touchy emotional.
Right. But it was an important aspect because it was coming to terms with his grandfather because he doesn't want to follow in the family's footsteps. He's not meant to be a scribe. He wants to be something different, but yet afraid to tell his mother and father this. But his and this relationship opened up, and between him and his grandfather, and then it blossomed into the fact that he doesn't have to, and has his grandfather's wishes to go and be what you want. It was a really touching moment between a character and an NPC that allowed Gandhi to mature a bit, within the game. But it did a really good job of playing through that aspect of Glorantha where, if your great grandfather is this, your father is this, and you're going to be that, and your son or daughter is going to be this, and just on and on and on. That kind of allows you to give a good set a good foundation for why your character is different than all the other people in this village. Why would you, now once these events, resolve themselves, why would you leave your village to go out and, seek fame and fortune or whatever the case may be? So.
Yeah, I mean, my character sort of like didn't have that foundation because she'd rejected it at that point, or at least the connection to it. And that was why she was sort of like doing two things, which is sort of like talking to Ezra because she needed someone to talk to, and then also making bad decisions. And it basically sort of like with no guidance, sort of like, and her emotions up and down all the time, making bad decisions. Like at the end of the first, rejecting her father, going off. Well, am I allowed to swear?
I mean, I've done it twice already.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
Going literally, having what I can describe as a rage fuck with one of the NPCs.
He said it.
Yeah.
Okay,
serial
so
rage fucking, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears. So we've
Yeah.
kind of talked about the initiation. We've talked about the scenario as a whole. Since I know Lloyd would like to talk about rules, since this was his personal initiation into RuneQuest Glorantha. So Lloyd,
Hi.
lay the rules on us and on the listeners.
Hi,
What are your
everyone.
thoughts?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lloyd, and I like rules. Rules are fun and exciting, but only when they matter. Do you know how many skills you get in this game?
Too many.
We don't, because we don't have them all. You want to know why? Because there's too freaking many. Too freaking many. Okay, hold up. I'm just going to read the communication skills. Act, art, bargain, dance, disguise, influence, intrigue, orate, sing, speak multiple visual languages, initiate, And then what about the rest I have? Who knows? All of these have different ratings, different rankings, and they may become relevant all the way through. Roy was so nice that he put all of the perception skills into one. Otherwise, you'd have look, listen, smell, I don't know, taste maybe, for no reason whatsoever. It's all listed down here. And I was like, oh man, that's a lot of skills. But you know what? I can live with it. It's fine. Bing! Wait. No, you don't just roll things. You also have your runes. What are runes? Well, before you make any roll, if you like, you can roll a rune to see if you get a 20% plus or a 20% minus to the roll you're about to make. Because why not? How many runes do you have? Well, you have fire, air, earth, water, darkness. No, not just those. You also have man, beast, fertility, death, infirmity, disorder, truth, illusion, status, movement. Why do I have so many freaking runes? But you can roll them when you want to. So I guess technically you have enough runes to roll whenever you want, whenever with skill, and hope it goes high or low. So I guess, you know what? You could live with it. It's not so bad. You could, oh, wait, no. Everyone has magic. So now we have 2 types of magic. Not one. We have 2 types of magic. There's spirit magic and there's rune magic. What's rune magic? What's spirit magic? Who knows? One you get back when you pray at the end of the month. One you get back because you can vibe with it or subscribe. What do? Well, magic spells are different and complicated. Everyone has them in the world. And things are kind of rich. Nope. They all do different things. Screw you. There's axe trance, earth shield, dismiss earth, slash, blade chop, spell magic, detect enemies, protection. I'm listing just the ones I have on my sheet. That's just the ones I have on my sheet. That's it. You know what? You can still live with that, even though you now have to join a cult and then get a point and everything's fine and you don't have to worry too much about it. So it's not really that much of bing. Oh, wait, we've not even talked about passions. The other thing you can also have. You can love or hate or have loyalties or have devotions or have fears or the...
So, Lloyd, tell us how you really feel.
If I had a gun to shoot parts of these rules away, I would have done so in a hop. There has gotta be a way to make this smoother. Like, I don't even want to talk about combat and the speed nonsense and what that means and the turn on. Like, I still don't get it. I still don't get it after nearly 3 months of playing what that all means. I'm not even gonna touch combat. Let me tell you right now, it is just as complicated and also just as deadly. I don't know. It was just so exhausting. I'm so glad Roy did all the work. So I just have to push a button and then have it roll some dice. So I couldn't even deal with trying to figure out specials and nonsense like that.
Okay, well, I think Roy summed it up nicely because, I mean, I will admit I'm a fan of Percentile Games and Chaosium's product lines, but there is way too many bloody skills in this thing. And to Roy's credit, though, Roy did mash up a few things and consolidate for us. Like he called one look, listen, smell. I mean, he just kind of rolled them all into one ambiguous skill.
Oh, by the way, do you know how you level up your skills? Oh, you have to use it. And at the end of the game, you have to roll, but you have to fail that roll in order for things to go up. And usually it goes up by less numbers than Roy gave us. But Roy was like, oh my God, you guys suck so bad. Have an extra few percentage on top of that. Let's not even talk about reputation rolls. Hey, roll 3d6 -1 or a +1. Pick one. What are you going to roll? Oh, I guess I get negative reputation for this. Oh, what a shame. I get nothing.
Oh my God. Okay. So now that Lloyd has had his time to rant,
I'm not done.
And you're not done shit.
I'm not
We're gonna
done.
do episode 4.
But I will stop here for you. Because I haven't even talked about the base stats that we get that influence everything. Y'all, you think, oh, do you just get skills? No. You see, we have 7 stats: strength, con, size, int, power, dex, charisma. All of these are numbers that go from 1 to freaking 18 and beyond, or 20 or whatever, like D&D does. And they all influence skills, but only for the basic number to start with. And also for carry and stuff. Also, I don't know, for like power for spells and shit. No, sorry.
Okay, Scott, can we book Lloyd on a future episode of Titterpigs to just talk about Runequest rules?
Oh no, I'm gonna definitely, but I'm gonna edit this like as Lloyd continues his rants. You're just gonna see empty chairs. as it slowly
Blank
zooms in on
And
him. And
Lloyd
when he's
just going.
finally done, he's not going to realize that we've stopped recording. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so no, and I mean, I get it. I do agree with Lloyd that BRP definitely benefits from a VTT of definitely just going, click this button and don't worry about it. Just it'll tell you if you win or lose. But also it may come from a little point of contention because Lloyd, how did those passion rolls go, and how did that how did those turn out for you?
Don't instigate, please.
Okay, look, I'm not saying I had the worst rolls in the game,
But he had the worst rolls.
but I had some days I was like, why am I even here? What is the point of this? I'm going home. I want to sleep. I don't want to be here anymore.
What was the option? What was the option? And I forget if this changed because of your reputation rolls, but at a certain point, Roy, you were like, you can either roll 1d3 or just take one.
And I was like, I'll just take one. I'm not doing
Yeah. Yeah, it's with like power increase, it's D3 minus one, or you can just take one. I mean, the big change was I was letting you have maximum increases to any skill you went up in because you're teenagers and you kind of sponges.
Point of question: what do you mean by maximum? Do you mean you roll how much a percentage is that you go up?
Normally you do
Usually.
D6 or 3. I was just giving you 6 each time.
Wait, did you say D6 or 3?
Yeah.
Lloyd's gonna have to think about this. He's gonna have to think.
Okay, I mean, I want to just say, just to for a bit of context and to defend Runequest. Okay, yes, lots of skills, lots of stats, so it is simulationist. Okay, and it's been like that since the game was published in 1978, and it's gone through multiple editions since, all of which have had sort of like had to be kind of backward compatible. So this is kind of like a carryover from the original rules, Runequest 2, in particular Runequest Classic, with the passion rules and the way that the runes work, in particular, taken from Pendragon. So there's sort of like a mishmash, sort of like of the two to fit together, and they do quite well. But the other thing is sort of like to remember is that the passions and so on, and the runes are meant to sort of like color how you do things as much as they provide a bonus. They are meant to influence, sort of like the way you do things and the power of the gods sort of like reaching through to push it forward.
Right. A good example of that is Gandhi, when I created his character, had a ridiculous fear of the Telmori, the wolf people, right? Which and I just picked that randomly, but I had no idea that the Telmori were going to play a big part of this campaign, and it did dictate how Gandhi reacted, with them, and also changed as he interacted with them. The passions can change and modify, especially at the end of the campaign when Roy said, Pookie, you no longer have a passion for your hatred of your father, and you decided, no, I'm going to keep that.
Well, the thing is, essentially, as soon as my character disowned his father, I took the passion at its base, 60% hate father, and that came up several times. But I mean, the thing is, over the course of the campaign, it worked lower and lower very slowly, and at that point, it got to the point where it eased. But what I wanted to retain was the memory of that hatred more than anything. It would never go away, almost like an emotional stain, an emotional scar. It might.
I was actually really pleased when you said I'm going to keep it, but at low level. I thought that was a really nice touch. I like that a lot.
Well, what about the others?
I will never forgive my dad.
What about the others? Keith, Roz? I mean, you obviously this is neither your first foray into the rules, but we've never really talked about it in the other games that we played. So
I would just add that I agree with Lloyd on the excessive amount of skills. I think some of it, this may just be from my opinion based off some play experience, but also just being a reviewer in general. There's too many skills. It can be streamlined to be more intuitive. That said, I do like mechanically, I do like the passion system because I'm a big fan of Pendragon. The runes, I'm still trying to mentally wrap my head around like invoking runes, and then being able to use the ability, the bonus. But it is a unique system. It is unto itself. I mean, it's got its lineage from bits from here and bits from there.
A good. If you want to get your head around the runes in Runequest, just think of them in terms of the traits in Pendragon.
Right. I can do that. Just because I'm well versed in Pendragon. I know that's kind of where they're derived from. But there are some differences from the traits in Pendragon versus runes. They're not matched pairs and things like that. Now there are some that are matched pairs. There are some that are not. So you have to, at least in my opinion, if you're going to get into RuneQuest is a lifestyle game. It is not one, I think, personally, that I think you can play like hyper casually and go, oh, cool, let's just do like this one-off RuneQuest thing, like once a year and say we had fun. RuneQuest is kind of like some board games that I play. You have to make a commitment into it because there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of knowledge, rules, and setting and lore, and you have to be kind of committed to it. And that's not a bad thing. It's just it takes a little bit more, a little higher level of commitment than say playing, the latest indie game that hit the scene this week, and it'll be superseded by something else next week. It's
If you're looking
it's a legacy
in
game
terms
in
of
that
like a casual game, if you're looking at casual gaming, pick a game up, run it for 2 or 3 weeks, and then move on to something else. You're probably gonna have more fun with Barbarians of Lemuria than you are, say, with RuneQuest.
Right.
But then again, I don't think Barbarians of Lemuria will ever give you the full sort of depth of play that RuneQuest and a Gloranthan game could.
Right. And I would say the same about Pendragon. You can't just pick up Pendragon to play a 2 or 3 session game and then move on to something else. You're better off, if that's the kind of game, like you said, that you enjoy, go play Barbarians of Lemuria or something else. But if you want a game that has more depth, then obviously like Pendragon or RuneQuest and those kind of games will feed that beast and scratch that itch for you.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, where there is even an alternative to RuneQuest for role-playing in Glorantha, what was HeroQuest but is now Quest Worlds, with a more streamlined rule set, you still have to sort of like engage with the setting and its depth and its detail as well. So it's unavoidable either way, even if you change the rule set.
Right.
Well, ultimately, though, for me, I think Doc Howie actually phrased it better. He said he's a fan of the setting, not necessarily the rules. And I'm kind of the same. I mean, if it's well integrated, I'll play any set of rules as long as it's in Glorantha.
Probably
it's
one
the
of the
world
best,
more than anything.
Probably one of the best times I've had playing in Glorantha is in Guy's
13th Age.
13th Age.
13th Age. Had played in 2 of his games once and had an absolutely wonderful time. I mean, I played a Duck Trickster, so how could you not have fun? Yeah. But still, it's definitely a different take rules wise, but it still felt like Glorantha.
I mean, the rules version, the version of 13th Age Glorantha uses the 13th Age mechanics ultimately derived from sort of like a mixture of 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons and 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons. But what it kind of feels more like in play is playing like a Saturday morning cartoon version of RuneQuest and Glorantha.
I mean, to be fair, at some points of this campaign, it did feel like a Saturday morning cartoon, especially when we were leveling up during that one session. with Roll20 constantly blinging in the background as you were playing out a horribly tragic and dramatic situation where just bling, bling, and then Lloyd
That was
suddenly
great.
screamed.
I was the
Ooh.
culprit on that one.
Ooh, I leveled up.
So, Roz, what
yeah.
can you add about the rules? Your thoughts?
Yeah.
I don't think that there are too many skills. And
Ooh, the dissenting opinion.
Yeah, because for me as a player, I like options. And also, I don't like to have, I don't believe in min-maxing, and I don't like optimized characters. I pretty much like to play underdogs and struggling characters. And I think the passions especially help you anchor. And it gives you, for me, a point of reference of what my character would do. Not in that whole roguey, well, oh, that's what my character would do, that's why I steal things. But for example, in the temple, when Dira's trying to pass through, gets booted out, I, a player, knew what I should do. I knew the right way to respond to what was being presented to me, but that's not what Dira would do. Dira would not forsake her father. Dira would not turn away from the family. So I like the passions, and again, I don't believe there are too many skills. I don't think you could ever have too many skills.
All right, that's fair.
It helps you focus.
Right.
For me.
All right, so how about you guys want to wrap this thing up or what?
Yeah.
No, because we haven't spoken about the last part of this entire thing that Lloyd has been saving for the end.
Okay. Yes. Let's.
I thought it was the rules.
Okay. So we'll let Lloyd do that, and then when we conclude, we'll just kind of just give a final thought a piece, and also just would we or would we not recommend this game to people? So Lloyd, yes, yes,
So,
strap in.
Context. I gave up a weekend of fun-filled activities to get to the end of this game. Gave up my free time because I thought, you know what? I want to see the end of this. I want to get to the end. I want to know what happens to these characters. I want to see them done. We played through it. We played through another battle, which I'm not going to talk about the rules for. Oh my fucking God. And we go through the Royal, where we go do the Royal stuff and have a fight, which I'm also not going to talk about the rules for. Oh my God. We finish the fight. The Haribon barely make it out, and the game ends. And I don't get a resolution to where these people go, to where it happens to them, to things that don't put your hand up, and your words would be like, oh, it's a prequel. Put your hand up. Put your hand up, Pookie. I don't get a happy ending or a sad ending.
No,
Had
you
the
do
game
not.
ended where we'd lost and we're all taken as slaves and we were slaves for eternity, I'd have been like, greatest game of all time, 10 out of 10. Here's my money. Andrew Montgomery, I'm buying all your crap. I don't even care whether it's a Joestar or not. I'll send you money. I'll fly to China. I'll high five you. But because we won and we didn't get that resolution, that bit where I was like, okay, so what happens now? I'm like, what? Well, like,
you did not get here. You got a whole panoramic view of the Aragorn leaving the Vale and stuff. It's the end of season 1. You don't get epilogues at the end of season 1. You get
I have a question. Before he made season 2, did he know he was making a season 2, or was that something he did after he made the money from season 1? Because that sounds like the Netflix version for me.
Yeah, he had.
That's a Netflix version for me. That's a lost season 1 for me. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah,
doesn't look like he.
I mean, what we got was Frodo and Sam paddling out in the river, and then the screen goes dark, and you're there in the theater going, wait, what? I've been sitting here for 3 hours. The theater's dark, and now I got to wait 3 years for part 2 to.
Oh, you would be right, except I have gone and read the blurb for Company of Dragons. I guess it must talk about the Haribon. No, it freaking doesn't. It's a bunch of extra adventures. It's nothing to do with what happened there. It's completely separate.
Right. Okay.
No, it's not.
Okay, Pookie, say your word, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, so I want to just to point out, Lloyd, you did actually get a personal epilogue. Because I got you just saying, I gave you a copy of the campaign.
Sending me a copy of the book as the epilogue hidden in my house until the day I finish. Does not count as an epilogue for the game.
But that was bloody wonderful, though.
It was so good.
Because the thing was, the thing is, that book actually came from another GM who attempted to run the campaign for that I was part of. Okay, and that failed because a player wanted to play outside the narrow confines of the campaign, so it fell apart. So I inherited that copy of the book, and I basically thought, okay, I don't know what to do with this. And then when you started playing, I thought, hold on a minute, the person who best deserves a copy of the campaign is you, Lloyd. So I wrapped it in black paper, as I normally do, and then I handed that to you in person and said, you can't unwrap that yet. I'll tell you when it's time. And it was on the end of the evening where we finished that campaign where I said, Lloyd, you know that package I gave you the other day? Now's the time to unwrap it.
It was brilliant.
Yeah.
It was good.
And you had to rush off and find it because you couldn't remember where you put it.
As nice as that was, and I appreciate that, my statement still stands. If I see Andrew Lloyd Montgomery anywhere in life, let him know he's gonna catch hands for not giving me the epilogue I wanted. That's what he should know. I'm gonna leave it. Leave it at that. I'm gonna leave it at that.
The epilogue.
Montgomery?
Is
Andrew
it Andrew Lloyd
Logan.
Montgomery?
Logan.
Oh, is it Logan? It's not Lloyd.
Yeah.
Oh,
no.
it's Logan. You're right. It should be Lloyd. Shut my name.
Well, the proper epilogue you're going to get is the Heraborn went back to their home planet, and as the animation cell makes its way up the screen, we're done. So yes, this has been almost 2 hours now that we've been talking about this game. So I know Keith has got to go here. So let's wrap this up. Maybe just a quick final thought of on the game, and would you recommend this to both experienced RuneQuest players and people as their introduction to RuneQuest? So Keith.
I would say in a nutshell, yes, and 2 thumbs up. Fantastic story, lots of options. It was immersive with the right game master. It's absolutely an experience. I think it's going to be an experience with any game master, but with the right game master like Roy. Kudos, Roy. Yes. It took it from being it took it to 11 on the volume dial. So yeah. I recommend it. It was a good intro to the game, some of the lore, and I really like starting off as teenagers.
Roz.
I would absolutely recommend it, but I would feel bad for folks who would play it because they would not have the trailers that we had from Roy.
Right.
They were brilliant, mate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could you Scott, could you insert a trailer here?
Yeah. I mean, if Roy will give me a one, I can edit it down just as an example. So absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah.
They're brilliant. And we got one before almost every episode, so it was great.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, so Pookie.
Absolutely. This 6 Seasons in Sartar is its focus is narrow, tight. It is so it doesn't overbear you with its lore. This is the best initiation you will have to playing Runequest role-playing Glorantha. It will initiate you as a GM into the setting. It will initiate the players into the setting of Glorantha, and it will initiate their characters into the setting and allow them to grow. Absolutely, this is the best starter product for role-playing. Glorantha role-playing in Runequest role-playing in Glorantha.
Right. Yeah. Lloyd.
I've always said that endings make anything. As such, I will give my review with my feelings of the ending and epilogue added to it. 100% definitely play this as an initiation into RuneQuest if your GM is capable of telling the story that this book gives you through. But don't leave your hardcore beach party for it.
And
can I just say to our, we were almost begging you not to. Every single one of us thought it is madness you coming back from a beach party in Brighton for this.
I was going to make the ending of this game unless something killed me. And it did. It was called the epilogue.
Oh, and Roy, even though you were a player, how was it as a GM, and how did you feel about running this?
Yeah, in terms of the book itself, 6 Seasons, I'd recommend it just to read. Not even if you don't ever run it, it's worth it just to read it. It's a great introduction to Glorantha. I think with any of the game systems that use it, whether you're using 13th Age, Glorantha, or Quest World, the campaign works with all of them. I mean, the book actually gives you conversion notes for 13th Age if you wanted to use it, and it was originally written as a Quest World, a Hero Quest campaign by Andrew Montgomery originally. So regardless of the rules, I personally, I love RuneQuest Glorantha. I've been playing it since 1981. I've been playing RuneQuest, so yeah, I absolutely love it. So when people say, "Oh, it's complicated," I'm like, "Is it?" I don't even notice it. I mean, it just comes as second nature to me. But yes, I would thoroughly recommend it. I think it is the best introduction, especially for players who are new to Glorantha. I'm running it again, and this time all the players are experienced Glorantha files. So I'm actually really curious to see how different the experience is there. But if you have, if you're a GM, running RuneQuest, it's always best to have some sort of knowledge of the setting if you're going to run it. But if you've got a bunch of players who are new to Glorantha, then you can't ask for a better start to Glorantha gaming.
Well, one thing you've learned from running it with us is when you reach the end of the scenario, you know to make sure that none of your players have a hot sex date set up. Tell them to go do that, and then you'll do the epilogue another day. And I mean, as for myself, pretty much the same thing everyone says. This was a wonderful introduction to the world of Glorantha. I learned so much more by doing this than my initial introduction to Glorantha, which was the quick start. I forget the rule of it was, but the one that goes to the tower. Right, the broken tower, which is great, but you do kind of fumble around going, I don't know what's going on. None of this makes sense. Who is this? Why are we chasing cattle? Who is this person? This one does make you feel like you are part of the world, and whereas these other introductions, you don't really realize what you're doing until the end, and you continue to maneuver through it. So this definitely takes you step by step, and by the end, you do have, at least in that part of the world, a good, clear understanding of what RuneQuest and Glorantha is like, and definitely can make a very valid opinion of, is this something I want to continue on with, or is this, I've had my fill and I had a good time, but thank you very much. So, and speaking of thank you very much, Roy, on behalf of all of us, thank you. This, as much as this game, as much as Andrew Logan Montgomery put into this game, I don't think it would have been anywhere near as fantastic without you running it for us. It's just an exceptional job. The amount of effort, sweat, and heart you put into this game just made it 100% as wonderful as it can be, for all of us. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Well, at the risk of making this into a big circle jerk, I mean, it fantastic bunch of players.
I'm a big fan of circle jerk, so thank you very much.
I was going to say, does that make up for the epilogue if we just, have a big circle jerk right now?
No.
Wow.
No,
Hey,
it does not.
Hey, my channel's not made for children. It's clearly stated. We're fine.
And neither is Titterpigs. So
Right,
yeah.
So in closing, everyone, thank you so much. I do appreciate you taking your time to speak about your experience within Six Seasons in Sartar and making this kind of putting a nice little bow on the scenario itself. So and so on behalf of my silly little channel
And
Titterpigs, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and we will see you again sometime real soon. Take care, there we go. Take care, everyone. Bye.